Okay, guys, so for the listeners, tell us, how did Metamorphosis come to be and how we came into working together?
Yeah, great question. So, yeah, I got on this path of personal development back in 2016. And in 2018, I'd written this like 50-page manual for a restaurant brand that I had in the US, and it was called Path to Alignment. And what I was trying to do was take these things that I had learned from being a couple years on the journey and to share that with people in the restaurant industry to support people in their lives. And then I wasn't really embodied back then. I still had a lot of stuff that I needed to clean up. Yet my heart was somewhat in the right place. And anyways, many years later, actually earlier this year, I had been traveling around the world, just still being patient, listening for where I was supposed to make a greater impact in the world. And just about 6 months prior to that, it was January this year when this came to life. About 6 months prior to that, I'd met Jacob over there in Germany. We were in Berlin. And we ended up finding out that we shared a similar mentor. We both knew the same person. And there was just kind of this trust and interest that had been ignited there. And then over time, Jacob and I continued the conversation. And I'll let him share a little bit about his meeting me as well and what unfolded from there.
Yeah, so where I was in my stage of development the year before, when we met in Germany, I was just about to run my retreat in Brazil, my plant medicine retreat, and I have a retreat company that I've been running for a couple of years, and it's just been so much working alone. So much just like grinding gears, and like really at some point I've decided I just don't want to work alone anymore. It's not how I want to live my life. It's not how I want to operate. This sense of isolation and competition, and I don't like it. And when I met Jeremiah in Germany, it was like immediate sense of alignment. And I was like, I'm a very fiery person. I'm a doer. I get shit done. And I felt like, wow, I'm finally meeting somebody who's like my match in this. And I asked him a question. I was like, hey, do you want to take half of my retreat company? Do you want to become 50% owner of my retreat company? And he was like, no, let's date before we get married. And we ended up jumping on Zoom call after Zoom call for a couple of months every few weeks, and we just got to really, really know each other. And the more we spoke, the more I was feeling like there's definitely a lot of alignment. Our journeys have been very different, but the conclusions that we got to were very similar in our heart, our sense of integrity, our sense of purpose, and our connection with higher power was all there, which are the pillars of the brand that we stand for.
Yeah. And so over those months, we were basically creating alignment through our conversations, really getting to know each other, really being intentional about, how we related to one another and talking about what's important to us, because I did see him as a co-creative potential partner. I just also had learned from past business ventures around the world to slow down this time and really check and listen and to make sure that we're really up to playing the same game. And so January, I was over in Australia doing some learning music production, and then I went over to Cape Town, South Africa. And a couple weeks being there, it just, this thing birthed. It came through after many years of being patient. I knew that I wanted to create a group development program. I had been doing one-on-one coaching and public speaking around the world, yet similar to what Jacob was saying, I really found a lot more value, fun, joy in the co-creative endeavors, building stuff with other people at this stage in my life. A lot of the past business ventures, I would have investors, yet I was the main one at the head, building it. And there was a part of me, and even back then, I really wanted to share more in with it. I was just really crazy back then. It was hard for me to really get along with others. And so this is in a really peaceful place in my life, just feeling completely aligned in my soul, my relationship with God, already being very successful working with people one-on-one. And this just download came for many years of reflecting. I mentioned back in 2018 having this program that I developed, but it was not mature enough. And so this metamorphosis was birthed in January. I called up Jacob and I said, hey, look, I've got this idea that's been sitting here for a while, and I've been reflecting these past few years. And I want to bring everything that I've done over this past, I think it was 8 years, and I want to bring this to a group. And in short, it was like, how do you take all these hundreds of thousands of dollars that I invested in personal development and how would I go back and redo this journey over so that it would be more effective, more cost effective, so that it would go at the pace of someone's nervous system, so that there would be like proper stages, what I assert is proper, that would guide people into, let's call it like a sequence of awakening, of healing their heart, of coming back into alignment with their soul. And so I shared that with Jacob. I remember just on the phone, just like, dude, here's what it is. Like, here's what I see. And then just like writing it all out. We were discussing it. And I just remember him saying to me,
yeah, it was a full body yes, immediately.
Yeah.
I've been in personal development since I was 13, so over 15 years. And I've seen so many different programs. I've done so many different courses, read all the books, spent years in the Amazon with indigenous, like drinking plant medicine ceremonies, not having integration, seeing what works and what really doesn't work. And more than what works, I've just seen so many things that don't work. So over and over again, seeing how there's always something missing. There's always, like in every program, there's either lack of accountability, lack of support, not enough like actual tangible things. It gets either too much into manifestation, or it's like too much like action and like growth or oriented. So this was one of the first times where I heard the framework, and we have developed it since. And even in that point, like the first round, just explaining it to me very briefly on the phone, I was like, wow, this is the most complete thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it was born from seeing all of these different programs that I went through, courses, books, working with therapists around the world, different high-level coaches, trauma therapists, psychedelic treatment centers. And I'm like, okay, what were the great things that I experienced? What were the things that were really effective? And I had started out in therapy as a 6-year-old, being diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, ADHD. So I had a long range, 30 plus years of being in, let's say, in the therapeutic coaching model. So I got to see a lot of things that I believe, worked and didn't work. And so mapped all of this out and just started designing that, just like filling it in, and shared that with Jacob. Laid it all out, and then we started creating like just intro videos for people. We call these a context series, 50 plus videos of how people can even relate to what they're about to experience, so they understand what they're actually getting into, how to think about what the work that they're about to do, how to listen, what game they're actually up to when they come to work with us, how this is really different than anything that they'd ever experienced. And so we put that out. We did an initial prototype with people. We had 47 people come through the first round. Only 21 made it through. And Camila was one of our, first people to go through, a founding member.
Yes.
And it just became such a pleasure working with you, seeing the level of transformation that happened in your life, and then seeing how widely you shared it with others. And so, I'll let you share a little bit about, just your experience, and then you coming to work with us, how that's been for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's all been so purposefully, divinely put, because I didn't expect to be working with you guys before I went into even while I was in the container, right? So, but it's been transformative. It's been such an honor also for me to come and be by you guys' side and come on to being a part of Metamorphosis has been so incredible. I love sharing this type of work with people. It's been transformative, so transformative for me in my life. And I fully believe that by sharing this with other people, it's just aligning me deeper into my purpose and my Dharma work. So that's why I'm here. And thank you guys so much also for bringing me on.
Yeah.
For allowing me to also just deepen into my gifts and what I get to share with the world.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so that's how it really came to be, the three of us. And yeah, I think we could probably share a little bit about now
Yes. Can you in depth tell us what is Metamorphosis?
Yeah, great. So I'm just going to dive into the methodologies, and I'm just going to explain the full thing for anyone that's listening that's curious about what this is. You want to know more. So consider that Metamorphosis, that's the name of our 3-month intensive group program. It's 12 weeks long. And in terms of structural, we meet 6 days a week. And you don't got to show up to all 6 days. I'll come back more to the structure later. At its highest level, though, our 2 foundational principles are connection to a higher power and living unified in one's Dharma. So those are the 2 main pillars principles. We assert that if those two areas in a human being's life are not aligned, they're not centered, they're not foundational, that everything else in their life is not going to work as good as it can be, and that people will continue to get lost in the chase of the world. They'll inevitably meet more suffering. When we're talking about connection to a higher power, a lot of people are like, well, what is that? Some people might have resistance to that, because what we've found is so many people have religious trauma in the world. They've not yet learned to make God or universal intelligence or love or whatever it is distinct from how they were indoctrinated from the church, from their parents. And so we do a lot of work in supporting people cultivate their own relationship with a connection to higher power as it lives for them and not from all their past pain and conditioning around it. The second layer would be living unified in one's dharma. And so what we assert as well is that when you really get in touch with why you're here, who you are, and that you bring all that you do to life, that itself is also a pathway. It's a connection to a higher power. It strengthens your relationship in God. It alleviates suffering in your life. And so those are our foundational pillars, principles. Now, the modalities in which we work from, two of the biggest modalities, let's just call it ontological coaching, or we do it, let's say it in another way, a lot of deep mindset coaching where we will get in there, we will create transformational dialogue. So let's say we pick topics that I'm going to go over here in a moment. We'll open up a conversation with the community about a specific topic, whether it's telling the truth, acceptance, attachments, relationship codependency, whatever it might be. We will start to share real lived stories that Jacob and I have gone through. And what we will do is we'll share the real vulnerable parts of what it was like, what we were experiencing in those times, what was our mind state like. And then we will share how we processed and went through it, how we came out the other side. And then along the way, we will start to open up questions and challenge people in that, listening to that conversation, challenging them based on where they're at and how they're viewing it, how they're seeing it. And so then after we've shared that story, we'll start to turn it over to people. And we'll start to ask them, like, hey, what's landing for you? What's coming up for you? What are you hearing? What is that activating in you? What are you seeing about your life? What challenges or resistance do you have? And so then what gets created is people will start to share. It creates this dialogue, this transformational dialogue back and forth. And then they will start to share and open up about what they're seeing in their own life. Because our stories, when we're sharing them, it oftentimes will activate something in them that they've repressed, pushed down, that's unconscious. And as they share, it starts to activate for other people. And everybody starts seeing themselves through everybody's share. And so it starts activating oftentimes all this repressed trauma, repressed memories that have been pushed down. And it creates this experiential effect where people just keep popping open. And their awareness is expanding, and this energy that's been like pushed down starts to kind of get welled up, right? And so that one area we call just like this deep mindset ontological coaching. We're looking at the nature of who we've been being. And then as that energy kind of gets welled up and people are kind of getting uncomfortable and they're disrupted and things are getting invoked, then it's like to turn it over to my partner Jacob, where we will lean into somatic nervous system work to then get them out of here now and down into that body to move it. And so I'll let him share a little bit about how he integrates the somatic nervous system part, bringing the body in.
So what I found is when all of these big processes happens, there's always the space where they've started from. Like, we're so caught up into wanting to change the symptoms, but there's the root cause of it. And the root cause is often stuck in the nervous system. It's not about at the level of the mind. That's why years and years of therapy, you could go through so much therapy, so many mindset courses, and read so many books, but none of it is going to change it at the level of the body. So this is where we bridge and we bring in the somatics and the work with the nervous system, the work with the body. Initially, in the first stages, that's more about bringing them to the space where they can resource themselves, when they can regulate themselves, and also just kind of starting to tease these processes out of them, just to let them experience what it feels like to actually process something at the level of the nervous system of the body. And then beyond that, in the later stages, actually going deeper into those processes and like pull out all the weeds with the roots, not just cutting them at the core, right? Really getting into that. So the way we work with somatics is really allowing the container to create the safety for everyone, because there's a resonance when somebody's going through a certain experience and what everyone else is experiencing. We're having this shared experience, and it's a lot of like mutual things that we can connect to. So as one person is going through the process, that inevitably triggers something in other people as well. So as that happens, we just flow throughout the group, allowing the group to create that safe space for each other, and at the same time just like being guided from one resolution to the other. And when one person resolves it within themselves at such deep core level, it often resolves it for the entire group.
Yeah, and so something he said was important. You know, starting out as in therapy as a 6-year-old and had gone into my, early 30s, off and on over many periods of years, and then coaching, I saw that the mindset will only take you far. It's absolutely imperative, yet that's why you'll see a lot of people said, I've been in talk therapy for years, and it's like, okay, well, why hasn't that gotten resolved?
Right.
And so the body will remember what the mind forgets. And so we can go so far up here. Like I could get so high up here and know these things intellectually and be sharp. Yet what I saw after many years and hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in the personal development world is no matter how much I got here, I can go back into certain environments or relationship and my nervous system would get activated and that reptilian survival brain would come on and it would throw out everything that I thought I knew. That activated part would override everything, and then I would be reactive and stuck in loops. And so it was only about 2.5 years ago, I met our mentor Judith, who's an 82-year elder, 50 plus years in the world of somatic nervous system work, and she poured her life into me, Jacob, and we brought that into our work to be able to bring to people. We've even have her co-lead. And so again, just to bring it up a high level, our foundational principles are getting people connected to a connection to a higher power, helping them get unified, their life and their dharma, their purpose work. And then the modalities that we use to support that are deep mindset, ontological coaching, and then also somatic nervous system work. So now I'm going to talk about 6 stages that we bring people through is very comprehensive. The first stage we'll talk about is, we call this cooperation with reality. And so we are going over the nature of what it is to tell the truth, like telling the truth fully in all areas of our life. And so we will share real vulnerable experiences of where we were not telling the truth. The things what we were hiding in our life, how that impacted our health and our relationships, our businesses. What we say is you're only as sick as your secrets, and what you can't say owns you and what you hide runs you. We start to connect people to how the dysfunction in their life is a function of not telling the truth. And doing that in a safe environment where people can let go of shame and guilt, that's just the starting point, a foundational, right? Is getting in touch with the truth. We go over what addiction means. What does it really mean to have addictions or distracting, or find another word that works for you, unhealthy coping behaviors. What is that really linked to? What is that symptomatic of? How do we get down to the root cause of that? We also talk about what it is to live a life with honor. We go in deep into the nature of acceptance, right? Everybody's got things happening in their life. Some people have been raped. Some people have had their fathers kill their mother. We've got, someone in our group now whose father literally killed their mother. We've got people from all sorts of levels of trauma. Some people hooked on drugs for many years every day. So life is just happening. Now, how do we accept life as it is first? How do we get out of being at war with ourselves and resisting and making it wrong and it shouldn't be this way and blah, 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 is supporting people moving to that state of acceptance. And first, just allowing life to be as it is, giving up the war, giving up the resistance. Because when we can get a human being to free themselves up from the war and they can create that acceptance, then they're going to have more energy to put on the new behavior patterns they want to create. Now, in the second stage, we call this building your foundation. So consider this metaphorically, is that we're supporting people build the foundation of their life on rock versus sand. I had experience, I know Jacob have as well, when we had gone into many other personal development programs, and a lot of people were chasing catharsis. I was too, chasing this peak experience, getting blown open. And oftentimes what happens is people go and they'll have these big expansive experiences, yet they'll be left way more destabilized, dysregulated, and fall maybe further back. Because, especially if you're dealing with addiction, if you just blow open the trauma, it will exacerbate the addiction. It'll exacerbate dysregulation. So what we do in this stage is we get people really tuned up with their nervous system. Some of the best vagus nerve practices, we bring in our mentor elder Judith. Jacob leads a lot of workshops throughout the whole program. yet we're really teaching them how to get in tune and build a somatic body, build more nervous system capacity. We're also in there going over connection to a higher power. We're talking about, getting fortified in healthy community. We go over principles of sleep, nutrition, exercise, movement, and not prescriptive like eat this, do this, go to bed. No, altering our relationship to these things. Because if we're going to take a cross-country road trip, right, in a car, you're going to want to make sure that the oil's been changed and there's air in the tires. So we're supporting people altering their relationship to their health so that they can be firm, so that they can have vitality, so that they can have this energy and cognition and clarity to do the depth of work that we're going to bring them through. In the third stage, we go into what's called now the inventory of your life. So what we did is we're building you a strong foundation over here. Also in building your foundations, we're getting clear on our values. What does it mean to live in alignment and values, meditation, other practices, so that when we go into this stage 3, what we call again inventory of your life, this is where we get really deep down in there. And in this one, we have people go through every single traumatic experience they've ever had in their life. And we call this the trauma timeline, where they are writing out every traumatic experience from childhood to today and what happened physically, mentally, and emotionally as a result of that impact. Like what started happening in their life around that. And then we also have them map out every major loss they've experienced, grief, right? There's over 40 recognized types of loss. And so they'll map all that timeline out. And then they'll also go through every physical thing in their physical health. Substances, antibiotics, vaccines, injuries, surgeries. And then lastly, which I consider to be one of the most important ones, is the relationship inventory, where they're going to take an inventory of every relationship they've had from childhood until today, past, present, dead or alive, where there's incomplete energy, meaning where there's unresolved emotions, where there's blame, hate, anger, resentment, grief, whatever might be there. We're looking at every single relationship where we've stepped over things, where we're still holding it. Because all of that energy is what addiction's made of. It is what disease and illness is made of. Things that we're holding on to that's buried down in our subconscious. And so through all these timelines, the trauma timeline, grief, physical health, relationships, what happens is these people start to connect the dots of what's happened in their life and why I have the life I have. Because often what's going on is it's just very unconscious. They've compartmentalized it. Some of it's been suppressed and pushed down. And as they start to write it all out, it starts to activate more things in their unconscious that come to the surface. And they start hearing other people share about it. And it brings it to the surface so that we can begin to work with it. Now, in the fourth stage, we call this reflection and direction. And so all we're doing is we're taking everything that we've seen and we are supporting people looking at now which big areas of energy that I've seen in all of these things that I've mapped out. Because in that stage, inventory of your life, people refer to it and they'll say about it, there was nowhere left to hide. Now that there's nowhere left to hide and I got all this in front of me and I've finally sat down and faced it, and I see that it's safe to face this, what would I work on to create the biggest amount of impact in the shortest amount of time? And so after that, we go into a stage we call cleansing, purifying, harmonizing. You can say it in a bunch of different ways. And what we do is we take people through a group process of starting to let go of some of that past energy. And we do a lot of relationship coaching around people's parents, around their important relationships they've had in their life and things they're holding on to, and really helping them connect to how that's impacting every area of their life. And that's an opportunity, a big opportunity for them to really be seen, supported, witnessed in the community. And what we've noticed after that process of, especially when we dive into relationships, that after we take them to that depth with most people, every person in there had never experienced it at that depth. These are people that have been through all sorts of personal development programs, work with some of the top coaches. They had never gone to this depth that we took them in relationships. And at the end of that, every single one of the relationships in their life altered and how they showed up with people, the levels of peace, self-expression they experienced, and just letting go of those things that had plagued them for so long. And then in the last stage, we call this consciously create, collaborate, and contribute. And so this sixth stage, metaphorically speaking, what we've done up to this point is, it's like, we call this like tending to the soil of your life. We've gone through, we've cleaned up all of the weeds, the debris, the toxins, these things that we've been holding on to our life, all the misalignment, the attachments, whatever it is. We've now cleaned up the soil so that we can start to bear healthy fruit. Because what's often happening is people out in the world, often in a state of survival or doing the things that they think they should be doing or chasing more money or whatever it is, and they're creating these businesses in a relationship from a place of pain or non-peace. So what they're doing is bringing in more pain and non-peace into the world. And so metaphorically speaking, what we're doing is we've tended to that soil, we've watered the roots so that we can bear healthy fruit, so that we can create our new business, our new relationships from our heart, from a conscious, intentional place, from a place of peace, so that we can collaborate with others. Like, this is how this was born, by going through these principles over many years with great elders and mentors who poured into me, so that we can collaborate with our brothers and sisters, so that we can use our gifts, our vitality, our energy to serve life versus just serving our ego. And that's a powerful thing to witness as people go through the program. They get really freed up in their energy. And what you're naturally finding is they want to figure out where they can share. They want to serve. They want to bring this to people. And you're one of them.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a little bit, those are the 6 stages that we really take people to. And we do that in a 3-month period. And that structure is 6 days a week. You know, a couple things more I'll share here, just a little more in depth, and also how we get those results. We meet 6 days a week. Why? When most people in the world maybe meet 1, maybe meet 2, we're like, no, we're gonna get in there 6 days a week. We did this because we saw that if you look at Alcoholics Anonymous meetings or meetings around the world, people could go to a meeting every day, pretty much anywhere in the world. And I and Jacob has mentors as well. We've had mentors that I could just call every day, and they were there and they picked up. And I saw that having people like that in our life, or environments like that in our life, really allowed us, a human being, to soften and trust. You know, it took me 2.5 years to trust a mentor I had that poured into me every day. That's how far gone I was in distrusting. And so I wanted to create a place with Jacob where we demonstrated that we truly had people's back. That there was 6 days a week, somebody can show up, they know they were going to be deeply supported, that we're there, fully present, answering the questions, holding them through the depths of their trauma. And so that energy infusing of having someone's back is what's also how to really create profound impact. And what people had told us is the high level of accountability. They never experienced this level of accountability in their life. And what do we mean by that? Most programs and coaches out there will take your money, yet they don't care if you show up to the things. There's no repercussions, so if you will, right? But if you have a flight and you miss your flight, you're not getting that. There's just not a conversation. You're not getting your money back. And so what we saw is, like, if we're saying that it's not about the money and it's really about the impact, how do we design and demonstrate that? And for us, it was, let's have a minimum number of sessions you have to show up each week, so that you've got skin in the game, so that you're making this is just as important as catching your flight. And then what we saw over there is, it's like, because you don't have gyms, you have membership, and the gyms don't care if you show up to the gym, right? They're just making the money. We're like, no, we want you to show up because we want you to have this impact. And it's, if I kick you a soccer ball 3 times and you don't kick back, it's no fun. So we wanted to play with people that are all in on their growth, right? And then what we saw through that, and just being that, designing that, is that when people showed up that way, they were consistently showing up. So people got to see familiarity. They continued seeing people show up on each call, and so they started to feel safer and safer and safer. And so this structure, creating a sound structure, creates a higher level of safety for people to really expand, to open up, to get deeper into those depths of traumas, things that they've been holding on, things that they've not felt safe to express anywhere else. And so that's some of how we've been able to design and structure where people can feel really safe, go really deep with us. You went through our program, and now after listening to this and having time to reflect on it, now you're working with us. How is it for you stepping into this and experiencing it?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love the structure of it, just because, again, like you said, people wanted the kind of accountability. I wanted the accountability. I wanted to have something that I could be present for every day, and I was in a lot of the calls. And also just, I really love the holistic part about it, where it was like, not only are we focusing on mental health, but we're also focusing on physical health. We're also focusing on everything from food to substances. And we're dialing into having all of these timelines pointed out, whether it's trauma, whether it's relationships, whether it's substances, anything that you've put into your body is being actually graphed and put on paper, which was game changer. I don't know any other program or anything else. I've done tons of programs. Nothing has ever dialed it in to a point where I could see on a piece of paper all of my trauma and could link directly to what substance I turned to right after experiencing that trauma, and understand, wow, okay, this is from here and this is from here, and really just like getting the entire picture of how I became the way I became. Yeah. And how it all plays a huge part in completely accepting yourself. Because like if you don't really dive deep and go into how you became the way how you came to, then like I feel like it's like what you said, you're white knuckling trying to just like change. But like this process allows you to really understand the why, the how. And then from understanding the why and the how, then you can truly accept. And then the next step after acceptance is letting go. Yeah. And then it's like an easy flowing of just complete transformation. And then you've metamorphosized into a butterfly.
Yeah. And what I'll add on to this is, you know, for everyone listening, and we tell people that come through this program, is that, you know, this isn't about healing. We don't focus on healing. What we focus on is supporting people. Again, connection to a higher power, being unified in your dharma. It's said in another way, just creating a life that you love living. And as a byproduct of that, healing takes place of having a greater context for your life. Yet to say that you're on a healing journey, your life is about healing, or I'm in my healing area, it's like, would you buy a car to drive to the gas station every day, or just stopping at the repair shops all day? No. You have a car to enjoy the ride and let it take you where it takes you, to enjoy the utility of it. And along the way you stop for gas, and along the way you have repairs. And so having this greater context and people being up to something greater, it actually makes this whole journey and this experience so much more fruitful and expansive and graceful along the way.
And one more thing I wanted to just share is what I came to, what my biggest takeaway from Metamorphosis is that, okay, like, it's not to say that now you're healed and now nothing bad is going to happen in your life. No, it's given me the tools and has given me the ability to regulate my nervous system and understand my body in a way where now, no matter what happens in my life, which a lot has happened since Metamorphosis, no matter what happens, I have the ability to stay calm, peaceful, trust, and surrender in a joyful way and still enjoy my life. And I think that's true freedom.
Yeah, I love the way you said it. It never ends. You know, some people had asked in our first, you know, when does it end? And we'd tell people, well, it doesn't end. Yeah. It's a way of being. It's a way of life, right? Exactly. It's not a short-term high. This is about long-term embodiment, right? That you would just love playing the game of staying in alignment. And then, you know, one of the other things I'll say that I forgot to mention as well is just how we're being with people, I find is really unique to a lot of people coming through this, that in the sense that we don't coddle and enable people, right? We don't continue to indulge the emotions and sympathize and just baby people. Yep. And a lot of the participants had exclaimed like, hey, when we asked them, what do you think made the difference for you? Like the impact. And a lot of them exclaimed is, well, my therapist and other coaches would coddle and enable me, and I would stay stuck, and I would just keep repeating the same things. Mm-hmm. And so here, we really lean into more of like a firm love, a direct, just no nonsense getting into it. Lots of space for people's emotions and experiences, and we do deep emotional intelligence and body work and somatics and let it all get felt, yet we don't just stay there. Mm-hmm. You know, we recognize an emotion can take 30 to 90 seconds to feel, as, you know, science has explained. And then at one point, we need to go beyond it. We need to bring the energy back onto what we want to create in this life. Mm-hmm. So I want to pass it over to Jacob to see, you know, he's got any more here to add just in terms of what this is all about and what he's seen through his experience of co-leading this with me as well.
Yeah, I love what you shared, Camila, when you said that you are noticing how right now after the program, you're noticing how much more you're able to be present, navigate different things. And I think one of the most beautiful things when the work is really long-term and sustainable is when you recognize how far you've come based on the challenges when they arise, how well you're able to navigate them.
Right.
And as Jeremiah mentioned, I have seen so much of chasing in catharsis. When I worked in plant medicine spaces, everyone is wanting to have these cathartic experiences over and over again. Even with breath work, it's a similar experience where people are just chasing more and more catharsis and expansion. And even through somatics, actually, it's the same thing when it's only somatic sessions without the actual integration of it into your everyday life. So this is what we're doing is very unique because it's based in integration. You cannot go through the program without actually creating change in your life. The program is creating change in your life. And then you have these experiences of going deep on top of that. It's not based on the catharsis and integration after. So the whole entire program is the integration of different levels of being, different practices, different understandings, different ways of being, really, really ending the destructive patterns, but also really fully seeing yourself in all the ways that you have been numbing and running away and trying to not look at the things that life is really wanting to show you. And the more life is wanting to show you, the more you're running away, and this is where it stops. You actually get to look at all of it. And as you get to look at all of it, as you get to process all of it, the safety in the container is, I think, what is the most important piece. Is because the depth of the work is so deep and is so profound that the safety that gets created through these requirements that we set, through the boundaries that we set, through the container that is there, it really lets everyone feel so safe that they allow themselves to go deeper than they've ever gone anywhere else.
And at the end of all this, the people that have gone through this program, and especially in the last round, end up becoming like lifelong friends. You know, people going all over the world to see each other, which we didn't even think about speaking to that in the beginning. It just naturally happened by the depth of work that we did. And so that really, to me, speaks to the openings that happened in people's hearts and the level of vulnerability and depth that they shared together, that they demonstratedly started having people's back. So, you know, that's what Metamorphosis is about. That's how this really all came to be. And if you'd like to see more of us, you'd like to get to know more of us, work with us maybe in the future in some capacity, join our programs, you can click the link. You can click our social media links below. You know, we're going to have one for our group page and for our individual pages. So feel free to reach out, follow us, and stay tuned for our offerings that are up and coming.